Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trading Spaces. This is our 13th episode. Unlucky for some, read into that what you will. And what we're hoping here is we're going to be manifesting a Santa rally. All we want is a green candle for Christmas right now. So it's been fair to say that we've had quite a lot of volatility over the past 24 hours. We had a softer than expected CPI print. Usually, I would be jumping for joy at this point. We had an initial pop of hopium and then a pretty swift rejection. We're going to talk a lot about that today, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. We're going to chat a little bit more about, what was driving that, but more importantly, where do we think we're going through until the end of the year? It feels like we could go either way right now, and um, it's certainly been providing us a ton to talk about at like BTC. We're going to talk through a few different alts as well, as some of the majors, but just before we do that, a quick disclaimer that, of course, none of the information that we share here is financial advice. Everything is for educational purposes only. I'm here as always with Dentoshi. Den, how you doing? You feeling festive?
Of course, I love December. Hello, guys. Such chaotic price action to unpack. This is going to be a fun one. I feel like there's so much on these charts that we need to talk about.
Oh my God, yeah. And can we please get rid of this AI face of mine and replace it with a BTC chart? I actually don't know which one's more terrifying, the BTC chart or this image of me with
I
abnormally
was
large hands.
I was honestly surprised you let them go through with that. I was like, wow, I'm happy that's not
S-
me.
See, this is the key, then. You're acting like I have a say in this. The Kraken interns, they go rogue. You can't stop them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I've been
They're
switched
on
off.
it though. I will say I have them. I've seen them made like some disses and some comments on Twitter. I was like, wow, this is like next level. I respect it
Oh yeah, you got to respect the hustle.
for
Wow.
sure.
Okay. BTC. Where to
Yes,
begin?
sir. Wow, I don't even know. Like, I feel honestly, because me and you were talking beforehand, and there's obviously so much that happened on the macro side. And I feel like this charts on a lower time frame, especially, this is BTC and of course like ETH and a lot of other charts will kind of mimic the same vibe. This was so chaotic, and I feel like whatever happened this week on the macro side gives a lot of color to this picture of like why we were, whipping up, whipping down, and so forth. So I'm super curious to hear like a little bit of an overview from your side as to why on earth we were doing
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
Yeah, like the meme of like the BTC roller coaster, where it's just like, going all the way
Yes.
up and it's just like this like 72-hour period is exactly what we refer to when that
Oh, for
happens.
sure. And the other one that I saw that was very spot on was the Bart. Do you know the
Oh yeah,
Bart? I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's from The
Yeah.
Simpsons or something.
Yeah.
And he has like his hair, and
Yep.
yeah, you can turn him up and down, and like it's kind of doing the Bart to
It's
both
the
ways.
classic
Like you
bar
see a
pattern.
Bart here, there's a Bart here, there's a reverse Bart here. It's so funny. What
Yeah, well,
happened?
yeah,
Honestly.
so right. We were talking a bunch on the last stream about, no surprises, I was talking a lot about macro, but
Hmm.
this has been macro months, certainly, since we got the government shutdown over and started getting some data back in. And yesterday and also Tuesday were the 2 days where we had, for really the first time, some up to date economic data.
Hmm.
And you can see in the charts where we've started to have a lot of price action around it. So the first one that we had was the non-farm payrolls report from November. That was a case of bad news is good news. And we got quote unquote bad news, i.e., less people getting jobs, higher unemployment rate. that was supportive of a rate cut. And as we've talked about in great detail on the last stream, BTC price action has heavily followed rate cut probabilities, at least for the
Mm.
December one. So we had that. Then, uh, you know, that wasn't crazy unexpected. And then it was all about CPI, and that happened yesterday. And this candle that you're highlighting right now, like if we zoom in a little bit on this candle, I think this tells you everything that you kind of need to know of like the chaos of what happened yesterday. So
Yeah.
we started, yeah, in like the run up to this with sorry, if we flip to the hourly actually, I think it's a slightly better view. At what is it? 1 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. So we got here
Mm.
people front running the CPI print, right? And it was like, okay, CPI print comes at 1:30 UTC, so 30 minutes later. We had this big green candle start to form, and then CPI data came in way under what anyone had expected. We were
Mm.
expecting 3.1% came in at 2.7 year over year. Core CPI was well under. Everything was well under. And it was like, oh my, I mean, I think I tweeted as soon as this went out, we're going to absolutely rip. And we did begin to rip. And then just to crush our dreams, what
Yep.
happens in the following kind of 30 minutes is big question marks come out around the validity of the data and can we trust it? And all of this, without going into too much detail, centered around the fact that because we had missed a CPI print and gathering that CPI data in October because of the shutdown, the way they'd structured some of the rental data was TLDR, basically to assume 0% inflation from September to October. And that just isn't really the case. It's like 0.4% from the July to September.
Hmm.
So the argument here, because shelter in particular, which rent comes under, is a major influencer of CPI, was that, well, maybe this skewed things and actually the data is not to be trusted or relied upon.
Yeah.
And we're going to wait to see a little bit more. And you see that in the fact that, before the data came out, we had a probability of getting a January rate cut was around about 24%. Yesterday it bumped to 26%. It's now at 19%.
Oh, wow.
I actually just can't make sense of that, to be completely honest. But I think the fact that we are just feeling very uncertain
I think that's what it
is,
is. That's
yeah,
what you see in the
is where
charts
it's
as
at.
well. Yeah, it's just no one can make a decision. This is
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we really, you can see those big hourly red candles, right? We were chatting about this just before when we were nosediving and went past 85K. I was really wondering whether we were going to test that level that we'd seen before around, I think it's like 83.5K, something like that. And
yeah,
we've
that's
seen
what I
some
was
strength.
thinking as well. Yeah. I recorded a video yesterday or the day before where I also said like, a sweep of this, and then of course you have a similar level on ETH will be like the
Hmm.
first to look at, and then obviously we have like these lows. But it's such a weird market, also the way that we're kind of like front running this and then pumping again and then stalling again here.
We're just
It's
tapping
yeah,
that 100 EMA, right? Every
yeah.
single time at the moment. What do you think about that? We're just really not, there's no conviction to get through that, right?
No, there's no conviction. And the tough part is that also, of course, like right above, we have a lot of other resistance in the form of like the 200s, which is this pink one. And then we have the yearly open there as well. And there's just so much work to do. And you can just clearly see, like, I know this price action feels very painful to a lot of people, but it honestly is kind of clean in a way as well, if you like zoom
Yeah.
out, because it is just a range, right? Like, we're not pumping past it, but we're not dumping below it either.
Mhm.
So it is actually, yeah, pretty clear. It's just really annoying, and especially on the lower time frame with those really sharp rejections and wicks like this. But yeah, I will say that this is just the work that we have to do. I know it's really boring to keep hearing that every week because that's what we have been saying for the past weeks, but that's just because nothing has changed. We have to keep repeating the same thing, you know?
Absolutely. Um, and I think the what I am expecting is that we're gonna be coming into Q1 slightly less macro dependent. Like I think, when we were around like pre 1010 and the
Mm,
flash crash that we had,
good
there
old
was a lot of bets.
times.
Yeah, the good old days. Remember those? Where you and we were, uh, you know, macro and rate cut potential was a nice tailwind, but it wasn't driving price action in the way that we're kind of seeing things happen and
Mm,
orient around right now. And I'm hoping that as we get a little further into Q1, that's going to really start to soften. The only thing that we haven't mentioned is probably the last macro thing I'd really talk about is the Bank of Japan. And why am I talking about the Bank of Japan? Well, the Bank of Japan have just raised interest rates, a relatively small amount to begin with, but it's for the first time in I think over 3 decades.
oh, wow.
Why is that important? Well, if you're listening now and you've been following, if you follow any macro people on X, or you sometimes hear this a little bit in CT, one of the most popular carry trades is the yen USD carry trade, and the the short explanation of what this is, if you kind of don't really know, right, is like you want to borrow assets in a low interest rate currency, right? Yen has basically been either zero or negative interest rates for the past 30 years. So you
Mm,
borrow in a low interest rate currency, very cheap cost of capital, sometimes paying you, and then invest in a higher interest rate currency. And then you pocket the yield difference. Now, what this often helps a huge amount with is investment coming in to USD denominated risk assets. Crypto gets absolutely wrapped up into that. US equities, massive portion of that. As now this starts to break down, and this is where you'll kind of hear about the unwinding of the yen carry trade.
mm,
And in particular, the BOJ have signaled that they are going to, this is the beginning of a tightening cycle. They are going to continue to raise rates. You will start to see the unwinding of the USD denominated assets that these investors hold, selling equities, selling sometimes crypto, and buying back yen. So it this is a it may sound like, well, how many people are actually doing that? A lot. A huge amount of US equities actually is wrapped up. And we saw some of the very brief yen carry unwind earlier this year, you might remember. This was kind of nearer the start of the year, if I remember correctly. And that caused a shock in the market through fears of this. It's been priced in a little bit for a while now, so less concerned, but you will start to see the impact of this over the next year or so. So something to just like know about. I wouldn't be obsessing over it, but I think that's like one potential headwind, whereas we
mm.
have the rate cut stuff as being a tailwind.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good to know these things to get like the clearest picture that you can with
Yeah.
all the circumstances and the context that impacts our market. And I think what you said earlier, there's just so much uncertainty just because obviously after 1010, I think a lot of people are speculating that there are still some things that are like unwinding from that or things that haven't, come to the surface. And then now, of course, with the government shutdown and this as well, there's just like a lot of moving parts that make it harder, I would say, to really predict all of this like further ahead. That's also why I've been saying lately that I'm not gonna predict where BTC or ETH or whatever is gonna go in like 2 months from now, because I really, really think that we are in a level to level market. And that's just like really all that we can say about it right now. And even that is just not with certainty. But I was saying the last stream as well, and with this video that I did yesterday, is that like if we break up above the yearly open and this resistance, then we can talk about 100K. But even that is just like such a small level difference. But I think for now that it's really like all we can kind of try to do is like trying to predict these small differences after reclaiming or breaking down from something, because the rest of the picture is just not super clear. And I
Breaking
think
through that
everything you
yearly
just
open,
said makes sense to that.
yeah, breaking through this yearly open feels like such a mountain to
I
climb, but
know.
it is
Oh my
like
God.
in such touching distance.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Everyone talks about when we're gonna break 100K next, but Matt, that's like that's the second peak that you gotta that you gotta climb,
Yeah,
and
that's like mountain number two. Like
yeah.
I'm not even looking at that mountain, to be honest.
100%. And there's a number of levels in there. Back, I remember when we were talking a lot about like that 96, 97K level, right? We've had some like, or yeah, it was around 98, maybe it was. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to work on there. But oh, man, we've just trying to get some momentum here. I think, we talk about the Santa rally. One of the things that people often um, talk about kind of coming into the Christmas period is when there is a lot of retail participation in the market, which I am definitely not convinced that there is right now.
No, there's not.
Yeah, it's a very low liquidity
We also
period
had
in the
a
market.
Santa dump last year, I'm seeing now. I mean, I guess, yeah, define Santa already. Like, what are the dates? I guess in
Yeah,
December we were kind of doing this run up, but then right before we like dumped. Yeah, we had a
we
Santa
did.
dump
It was
last.
the
Ah, but
peak.
like, yeah, yeah,
It was yeah, because it was the altcoin massive rally, and then I think it was the very last few days of December.
mm-hmm.
But it's like very low liquidity, right? And coming into the end of the year,
Yeah. Twitter is
and
dead as well. I feel
yeah,
like people are like, I feel like obviously with December, it's like if the price action is fun, you want to stick around because it's nice to cheer for the market or whatever. People have some free time and stuff. But when it's bad like this, with these like whiplashes on both sides, people are just like, never mind, I might as well just log off and spend time with my family. And I get it.
yeah, and the thing is, we often do see quite big swings in either direction because you haven't got the institutional flows as much
Mm.
during that period of time. And this, I think, is another thing to really think about. Is like sometimes you can like have periods where you break through. Then you've got a lot of the flows coming back in early January, so who knows? But it can, when it's a favorable time period, it can
Yeah.
be really exciting. I mean, I still remember 2017 was like, when I think it was around this date was when we hit like the first BTC all-time high. I think that's when we hit like 19K, and it was just like euphoric around that period. Um,
Oh, I wasn't here
yeah.
yet.
Oh
Oh
yeah, so I
yeah.
think
Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
still
Yeah.
yeah, it must have been yeah, 18th, 19th.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's so
still
funny. So it
remember.
was the same as last year. So it's like a
Yep.
run up to Christmas, but then around Christmas, actually, it's a dump.
And then it's like, yeah, and it can really go one of two
Interesting.
ways. And I think
Yeah.
because I mean, back then it was way more retail focused, right? You didn't have the same level of institutional flows and stuff going in.
Yeah.
But then when we came into, was it 2020? I think we had like it was like 30, was it
I mean, this was
2020?
a real Santa
Yeah,
rally,
this was the big one.
2020. Wow.
Because I still remember that 2020 because I sold a bunch of Bitcoin and then we had the monster rally the next year and I was like, ah, damn. But it was it does have precedent this period, and it's usually from around this kind of date that we start to see price action in either way. Is it going to happen again? Who knows? But
I don't
I
know.
do think it's an exciting setup.
I feel like, it's really, really clear what we have to do, like from a price action POV. Like we have to do something like this, where these emails like cross. in a bullish direction. Like that would give me semi conviction we might have that move in us to 100K doing
Hmm.
something like this, but I'll believe it when I see it. I think the same is for ETH, which is actually a little bit nastier because it had like this fake out.
Yeah, it was looking a little bit better. I remember when we
It
were
was,
talking on the last
yeah,
stream,
but still
that
into resistance, remember? Because we actually did this bottom call on stream as well, and then we said like first level, and if we
yeah.
flip it, then range highs. But we made it to the first TP, but then we just sold off. And now we're back at that mid-range though for ETH. So I think, yeah, there is definitely some interesting support around here. And then also with ETH, we have the same thing where this really triggers my OCD that we haven't like swept this and
Yeah.
this. So it's just a little awkward. I feel like I would be, yeah, to be convinced we have upside in us, I either would have to see like that same thing I just marked out with BTC where we do like some reclaiming, or we would have to do like a little bit of a sweep of those lows.
Yeah.
And that would be like a nice little liquidity grab. But so far, obviously, we are in that super awkward in between where we're not doing either of those things. And
Hmm.
until then, I think it's kind of like should be a waiting game. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. It seems like a very similar setup that we've been looking at with BTC, really.
And something that's interesting actually that I wanted to highlight is that Solana is the only one that has done that liquidity grab.
Yeah.
So it will be really interesting to see what happens there because you can argue both ways, right? Like it's obviously like weaker in a sense because we did do that dump, but then also coming off these lows, it might have the potential to be like the one that's, I don't want to say leads the way because first it was leading the dump, but like if this would come off these lows super strong and like start to reclaim here, that would like maybe signal us something. But so
Hmm.
far, we're just kind of hanging around. I do think that if we would start doing something like this, where we like retest this bearishly and then break down, that would be like really nasty.
Yeah. And I think the certainly the retail sentiment. If I think about Sol, ETH, BTC, it feels like Sol is one of its lowest points in
Mm.
recent times.
I mean,
But
of course, they went through so much, these manlets, right? The
oh my
pump,
goodness.
pump
Yeah,
dot
what was it
fun
like
and like,
$8 after
oh my God.
FTX?
Yeah,
Like that was a
so
trip.
bad,
Are we
honestly.
seeing anything on any of the alts? I know we talked a bit about uni oof, about a
Yeah,
month
because
or
I,
so ago.
yeah, because I do think they had also some stuff from the fundamental side, right? What was
Hmm.
it again? Proposal
Yeah,
fee
so
sharing? Something like
yeah,
that?
so what they're doing is they're now in the final stage of the um governance proposal fully is out now and live for voting on the fee switch being
Hmm.
turned on. It looks like that is going to go through, but a big part of it is that, and I think the deadline might be, oh, I want to say maybe the next 24 hours from that. Hayden sent out a tweet about this. Um, and what they will be doing after, if it passes, is a $100 million retroactive buyback. And that's going to be a single buyback and burn that they're going to do, which actually would be a pretty significant amount of volume. So
Hmm.
how they pace out that volume. I doubt they're gonna just like YOLO clip it, but even if it's spread out over a period of time, it there's a material fundamental shift. And then the ongoing fee stuff, as we talked about in great detail a few episodes ago,
Yeah.
does have a material impact on the buy and burn. I think as far as alts go, I have had very little appetite to
Yeah,
even
it's
get involved in alts in any way.
no,
This
there's been no
feels a bit
reason to be
different.
in. Yeah, I honestly haven't had that appetite either. There's just nothing that really Looks interesting. I remember back then we were saying like, okay, if we do a retest here and we hold and we start like climbing out of this diagonal, we can, consider a long.
Yeah.
And obviously that like never happened. I mean, I will say like the often the best time to pick things up that are fundamentally interesting is at these range lows, but then still with this kind of environment, I would love to see some sort of action from it. And then also, of course, we have so much work to do on the BTC and ETH charts that it just kind of feels, it's yeah, it's tough to be excited about something right now. I think with something like this, if that proposal does go through, then obviously you would want to see something like this where we start, breaking some trends and stuff. And then your
Yeah.
inval would be if we start breaking below the range lows. But yeah, it's tough
This
with
is one of those
altcoins.
charts. This is one of those charts for me. This is like the classic bull cycle altcoin like look back where if you take a trade here, it is absolutely a massive gamble that you're taking. But
Yeah.
if the upside plays out and we do get some big moves in BTC and ETH, and then we get into like an altcoin rally, it'll be like,
Mm,
an amazing trade, of course.
yeah.
However, the downside risk here, as we've seen, the
Yeah.
downward moves on alts
Oh
way
man.
more
So
aggressive. I
violent.
mean, look at this peak that we just when it broke the diagonal and rejected. It's what's that range? Is it down 50%?
Yeah, it's
Like
crazy. And
more?
also, if you look at formerly strong things like hype, I remember
Oof, yeah.
us discussing this a few times, and it's just so violent. Like this is
Yeah.
the perfect like Wyckoff. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like this
it
guy
was
that made
beautiful.
this schedule, this graph that always looks the same, and it's just perfect like distribution. Yeah,
I think there was an
that's
episode when
that's
we were digging
tough.
into this and we were talking about how beautiful it was trading the range and how actually at the time, which I think was like the last week of November or the second last week of November, we were saying, it hadn't followed the same path as BTC. But I think
Mm.
you drew out in that session, like if we break down below these levels,
Yeah, it's gonna get
that
ugly.
there's a long way to go. And you can kind of see it. I mean,
I would,
$24. When was the
I would,
last time we saw that? Was that back in Jan or something like that? Oh
yeah.
no, maybe May.
May.
Yeah.
I will say this is something that I would love to buy if we
Yeah.
get like to a point where I'm like think that the rest of the market also is lining up for that. I think like some levels that could be interesting if we move to the slightly higher time frame would definitely. I mean, I guess here, we have like this whole situation kind
Yeah.
of, but I think if we get here, I will definitely consider
For sure.
getting involved there. But yeah, it's been tough. I think also, remember when we spoke about this total chart and we said
Mm.
like if we break below this 2024 all-time high, we're probably gonna see this. I think
Feels like
now
a
we
long
are
time
like,
ago now, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, so much has happened. I think we really, really want to reclaim and hold this. If we break back into this range, like that would not be good.
No.
Then this is
No.
like our next level. And it looks not super far away, but that's gonna be very painful for a lot of people, I think. If we,
100%.
yeah.
And especially this is where I think like where retail in particular have been hurt. I mean, the classic like non-technical trader that is accumulating alts in anticipation through the year of a big altcoin rally. Like this
Hmm.
is yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's definitely gonna get interesting because you guys know I'm not a macro expert. Always want to give that disclaimer, but this is something I have been tracking super closely with the ES, which
mhm.
had like this perfect trend for a really long time since May, actually. As you guys can see, the EMAs were super spot on here. And then actually around the same time that we had our doomsday, we started seeing like weakness there where we can see that we started breaking the trend and kind of making like a lower high around that weakening trend as well. We then had this big dump, and now we're kind of trying to reclaim all of this. So, what would be really good for markets? Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts, but just strictly from the chart perspective, to kind of hold this and establish a new trend, that will be really strong. But obviously, we are around resistance here, especially if you move to the higher time frame. It kind of feels like I think Maine was charting this as well, and he said like in his perspective, which I obviously trust because he's much more involved in macro and also a great trader in general. He said something like you either want to buy this much lower down or you want to do like a double top scenario here where we kind of like break that top and then sort of like retest it. So like a
Yeah.
breakout and a retest, which for me as a trend trader, if we see that type of strength, that will also establish that new bullish trend here that we would hopefully then start following in the way that we were doing back here. Not saying that that will happen, but just something that I'm super closely monitoring because it was so clear that we had all this strength and then we kind of transitioned into chop. And now we're either, transitioning to a downtrend, I think, or we're transitioning back to that uptrend. And that would
Mm-hmm.
obviously potentially coincide with our crypto charts doing some sort of level reclaiming here.
I think the thing that the charts like ES have got in their favor is on the equities side, there are a lot more of the fundamental narrative catalysts. Like one of the things I think that's helped in the past 24 hours is some of the really positive earnings that have came out on the equities side, and that can
Oh,
really
which
like
ones? I
boost.
haven't seen that
So
yet.
I think a lot of like the big consumers, I think Nike did one and a few others, but it was just kind of like more and more of these um, kind of just quick narratives that take the limelight away from the concerns around the AI trade
Hmm.
are better, right? So I think what also showed up that is worth calling out actually in the CPI data is while inflation was low and consumer spending was actually really strong, people are still buying quite a lot and spending. That's
Yeah.
much more of
I mean,
a
what else is there to do, right?
yeah, right.
The
But it's
ship
a
is
big
sinking. You might
tailwind.
as well spend.
Exactly, right. And it's but that's a big tailwind that's like, oh, I can see how that translates into equity growth because it's earnings
Yeah.
positive. For BTC and crypto, don't really see that as much. And so I think on a lot of this, it's just really about what is the catalyst, right? We talked about breaking through the yearly open to start.
Hmm.
Where does the momentum come from? Where do we get that right now? There's no major big macro kind of news through to the end of the year, right? So it's
No.
do we have conviction coming into next year? Maybe you could argue like some more certainty around next Fed chair, stuff like that. But honestly, I think the CPI stuff was the last piece. It's do we start to trust it more? Do we want to front run a potentially good set of macro data coming into January, new momentum? And I think that's where you either get this really nice Santa rally or
Hmm.
the confidence is not there and it's oh, I don't have conviction, and we start probably just range trading but testing kind of some of these different like lower levels. But it's hard to know, but
Super
I
hard.
think we're going to be up and down quite a bit over these next few days.
Yeah, I have the same feeling also with the low liquidity environment. Obviously, with the holidays, people leaving, it really can
Hmm.
be like that. And I think our next CPI is what, like mid-Jan or something? Do we have anything important before that?
We will, yeah, because we'll have PCE. Let's see. While we're at it, I can just quickly see what the next big dates are because I think
Yeah, because
these are
I
important
see
ones.
BTC and Ether are trying to make a tiny attempt again at those EMAs.
That's what I was just
Man,
looking at when you were talking there as well. We're kind of coming back
it's
to
so weird
those
because it doesn't
levels.
want to go up, but it doesn't want to go down either. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, if you're
just,
range trading, it's pretty phenomenal, right? Like, I
yeah,
think for a lot of like perps traders, they're
especially on the
they
short
enjoy it.
side, because
Yes.
those sweeps are perfect, especially on
Oh,
BTC.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's pretty much been. it's been very predictable if you're just trading like the technicals and shorting pretty much all of these levels each time. Um, right, let's see. Okay, coming into January, if my economic calendar will ever load. Maybe it
Mhm.
won't. But we're gonna basically what we're gonna have, which should be in the first half. We'll certainly have PMI,
PMI is
um,
January 7. I see here.
January 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get that. Okay, here we go. So we've got oh no, it hasn't loaded for me. Okay, yeah, so we've got PMI coming in January 7th. This is probably not gonna do it for me. It's just like loading. Oh, here we go. PMI on January 1st, actually. We've got manufacturing PMI,
Oh,
less important. ISM is on the 5th. They're kind of okay. We've got non-farm payrolls for December on January 9th. That is definitely going to be one for us to pay close attention to. Um,
love that.
that's where we'll have kind of the the dovish case. We've got the rate cut decision actually all the way in at January 26, but I don't think we have anything actually before that outside of PMI that we're going to really get. So uh, we've got all the unemployment rate stuff. The first 2 weeks are where we get basically most of the information that's of any meaningful data in January. So really, I think that's if by the 9th we haven't made some progress, it's
Feels far
probably not
away.
going to be. Yeah, because we've got PCE that's coming on Monday next week, but it's for October, and it'll be a similar thing where it's like, it's you know, it's too old. Who cares? I think it's a nothing burger unless something crazy shows up. But even then, it's probably not going to. And then that's really it. So yeah,
Mm.
where's the catalyst? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Donald's got something on up his sleeve for us. Hopefully something good, but
Who knows?
who knows? To be completely
Yeah, I
honest.
think from the chart side, what I would love to leave the people with is like on the upside, we just want to break these logical resistance, trend resistance. On the downside, if we get any sweeps and strong PA from that sweep, whether that's here or here, I don't know if I will be blindly bidding because it's the holidays and I will be off the
Yeah.
screens probably. But I think like any like nice little something like this and then like some strength from there or the same goes from here. I think that could be super interesting for like a shorter term trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and besides that, this is just the range we're working with. And until we break it to either side, there's not much more to say. I know it's boring. I know we've repeated ourselves, but I think it's good to stay objective and to just take the charts at face value and just say it as it is. So that's what I have for you guys. Same on
Well,
ETH. And Solana will be, as I said, a nice little indicator here, maybe, because if we start breaking below, then that would also tell us something because this is the only chart from the big tree that has done that sweep.
hmm.
So yeah, let's see what we get.
I think clearly on the downside for BTC, which maybe we haven't mentioned too much, that 80K level is
Hmm.
super important. Like
Yes,
we
I
we we really
actually,
need like a strong sweep upwards. Like that would be a bad sign if we start getting into the
oh yeah.
sevens territory.
I saw a really beautiful fractal circulating on Twitter about this kind of. Obviously, fractals are always a bit of a meme and like who knows, but I do think at this point this starts to look a little bit similar,
Yeah.
where we had like this. So in that sense, it could very well be that we do get like that kind of like dump to take it out. I think this was more beautiful because it was like a tree, what do they call this thing? Tree drives,
Yeah.
something like that. There's a name for it. And obviously here we have kind of like front run. But yeah, I can see how this bottoming structure, some people see like a bit of a resemblance there. So that's something to keep in mind. And I completely agree with you. If we do touch this and we don't get a strong reaction here, then it's like, what are we doing? You know?
Yeah, that's when things start to get worrying.
Mm,
Um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
for sure.
Agree. Yeah. So that's what I'm watching.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying there's going to be quite a lot of action over the next. I have a feeling it's going to be another one of those weekends, then, where we see quite a lot of action through the weekend. Maybe I'm maybe I'm wrong, but I would love a nice Sunday rally. Who knows? But I think yeah, we'll be paying close attention to those levels. We'll be back in the new year. As always, thanks for all the analysis, the charting, Dan. I think it's been great for everyone tuning in. We'll have the replay coming out really soon. Make sure you're following at Dentoshi on X, follow at Kraken Pro, at Kraken FX. And of course, if you haven't tried out Kraken Pro yet, hop in there. We have the desktop app as well that you can go and play around, even if you're just using it for charting and taking a look at some of the levels that we were doing. And we will see all of you back soon with the next episode of Trading Spaces. Stay safe out there.
Absolutely. And if anything happens on these charts, you will hear from me on twitter.com. So happy
Oh yeah.
holidays.
Hang tight. I think we're good. Just double check it. It's not loading. I think we're safe though. All right. Hang. Check. Are you guys seeing that we're live on X still? Or are we good?
Just don't say anything incriminating.
Okay.
Let's see.
I think
I think we're
Twitter is
still
buggy
live.
today. Yeah, it's not loading for me the entire page. So that's probably why.
Yeah, we're still live.
Yeah. One sec.